Okay. Did she tell you that we're recording?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Hey, Michelle.
Hello. How are we doing today?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Yeah.
Get my notebook. Yeah, it's a decent Thursday. We have an interview tomorrow. So
That's exciting.
we've got lectures today, 2 intern case presentations, and a dietitian who has a nurse practitioner credential as well present for interns and dietitians. So that was a full day so far.
Yeah. Okay, good. I know you were saying it was kind of a stressful week, so I'm glad that you have some fun things and some potential new hire. That'd be great.
Yeah, this is the fun thing. This is the fun thing I get to look forward to. So
This,
it's like my fun.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, good. Well, we're gonna do 45 minutes today, and
Okay.
and we're gonna cover we're gonna co-create your development plan. Remember we talked about that.
Okay.
We're going to take what we
Yeah.
remember, and I'm going to help remind you of some of the feedback, some of your pre-coaching intake form. Got it all up in front of me.
Okay.
And then what we'll kind of try to do is narrow down into, I mean, I would say for work, it's probably ideal to have just a couple things that we want to focus on. But I also know that you have some things that potentially are, well, they're tied to work. That could be professional objectives, not we won't include in this for your because you are thinking about leaving maybe or doing something else.
Right. Yeah.
Before we dive in, any questions and or any like 911s, things that are top of mind that you want to address before we get into it, since we've met last time?
Yeah, I guess eventually the things that we went over last time, you said you will send to me so I can have a copy of.
Oh yeah, let me do that right now. So that you can have it in
Or
front
you
of
don't have, yeah, jot down just so I can have it. It'll probably look a lot more beautiful than my handwriting. So, I mean, I can for sure use my notes for today, but just want to have it to like reference eventually.
Yes. So I actually was going to send it to you right away. And then the file completely got corrupted and did not save. So unfortunately, a lot of the notes that I took during our conversation, because we haven't recorded, I was able to go back, but
Yeah.
But some of the
sorry.
No, I just was so sad because I know it's important to me that you have it and so I did redo it, but and you never saw it the first time, so you don't know what it looked like necessarily, but
right.
All right, I've just sent that to you. So maybe you want to pull that up. That might be helpful for you. And as I mentioned,
I usually have split screen when I'm in my office, and so I'm like not as good at simultaneously zooming and
I know
having something.
It's a challenge. I have 3 screens, but because of
you.
Yeah, but because of the way that my laptop camera is my optimal camera, and so I have my Mac here, but then I have my 2 screens. But if I'm talking to you and I'm looking up here, I don't love that. So I split my own one screen too and just move things around. But
well, it looks okay when you look over there. Like
okay. Well, I'm gonna keep your pre-coaching intake form up there, and then I'll keep your 360 review here. So yeah, did you get that document?
Well, I'm scared that, oh no, here we go. Let's not be scared. I did 360 summary. Okay. Here we go. Beautiful.
So let me just scan it with you for just a second, so you know what you're looking at. The process is kind of documented top, how many of each category you got feedback from. Then it restates the questions that were asked, which is, that 1 through 23. And then there's an overview kind of statement that I wrote with some of the notable quotes from your raters, which I mentioned out loud to you last time, but there's just some fun ones there. And then we did review last time the general observations, like you scored yourself lower than any other rater, you didn't receive any below average scores, and then this is a list of questions that you received 1, 2, or more below average scores on. And I didn't note this last time, but 4 of those you agreed with, which I thought was interesting. Like you rated yourself average too. Thought that was an interesting note.
Yeah.
And then I put your leadership styles in ranked order. You can see the numeric number at the end is the score that ranked you that way. So you can see kind of the differentials between them. So some of they're not, it's a small spread. I mean, from 43 to 58. So you can kind of see the difference there.
Wait, where do I see that? 43 to
it's the last bullet point under general observations. It says Michelle's leadership styles.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then remember your descriptive words we collected. And the bold is 2 responses, bold and underline 3 more. Yep, you got it. And then your strengths. I reconfigured these because 1, I didn't have the document that I worked off of, but that quote there is a quote taken, from feedback that Michelle has the ability to manage many tasks and people while still producing a good quality of work. And I think that's a lot of what you'll see in the strengths is that, the individual work style and ethic we talked about, your leadership style and presence, on a leadership level, how you develop your team, and then your quality and problem solving. And then in your growth areas, we talked about corporate leadership and communication, emotional intelligence, and some changes in work style. And those areas I bolded a couple things because those were consistent, very, pretty consistent. And really the things to consider came from the raters too. And that was just wanting to see you have the opportunity to keep growing your knowledge and skill in your field of work, leadership, obviously capacities, and emotional intelligence. And so today, these development plan steps are what we're going to do. We're going to co-create the development plan, and it will include 2 behavioral objectives like I talked about. And then each one, we want to be able to document where you are currently and what success looks like. And then lastly, we want to be able to give you some specific activities and exercises to implement so that you can get closer to those goals. And from here on, our coaching engagement will really focus on developing these things, these areas in particular. So,
and then we end up back in like halfway, like a few more weeks or something, or when do we share some of those with her?
So I think what I'll probably do, if you are in agreement, is I would take off this development plan piece. I just put it here right now for you and I to look at, but I would send her this copy of this report, just as it is. And then from there, we would co-create our development plan. I'll draft that, and then I would send her that too, so she can have the 360 feedback, the development plan, and I can set, do that incrementally so she can look at them, and then.
Yeah, would suggest me to probably make a meeting with her to go over it. Like, hey, I know Karen sent you XYZ. Can we have a time that we can go over it? Because in a ideal world, we would have our one-on-one feedback time set up regularly. But that doesn't happen. So it's not like I have the opportunity. Like I would have to literally set up a meeting to be like, hey, can we please go over this?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And and a lot of this, I think a lot of what we've gotten into here, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, this feedback, it mirrors what you did here in your other 360. There's a lot of, I probably worded it differently or collated it differently.
Yeah.
But I think there's some.
You went on in depth and made it make a lot more sense than us just kind of briefly looking at it and being like, oh yeah, or have a question, or this definitely was a more thorough review and explained in a better way. So I feel like I can do something with it.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And that's the thing is, it's feedback isn't really helpful unless you kind of know what next to do with it and you can digest it. So I think that's great. And I say that just more to say, your supervisor didn't participate in this particular 360, but I know that she did in the previous one. So, my instinct is that she will not be surprised by what we come up with here is my point. Yeah. Okay.
Agree.
Okay. Okay. So let's revisit for just a second, your pre-coaching intake form. I think it'd be interesting for you to even compare these two documents, because I think you'll see, some similarities in the way you describe yourself, and then even kind of just the alignment of your goals. So if we look back at and you don't have to pull it up if you don't want to, but I'll just tell you, when you look at let me scroll to.
That's the document that completed.
Yeah, and do you want me to share my screen and show you?
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I can also listen. Either way.
Can you see? You're seeing the 360, or are you seeing this one?
I think I'm seeing this one. I'm seeing this is different than what I'm. Yeah, that.
Okay.
I think I'm just what terms are what. So yeah, I'm like pre-coaching intake form. Yeah, totally. That one.
Totally. And so, this one, system level making decisions that don't support my department. Like we heard, your team say that. And in fact, if you were to look at your 360, under the overview, I wrote in there, Michelle, it's thought that Michelle is limited by the organization's systems and processes, and yet still leverages her vast amount of energy and positivity to persevere and accomplish goals while still all while smiling. So, I think people sense that. And then even these words, when you look at those words, a lot of those words are the words that showed up under your strengths and descriptive words. So there's alignment there. And so I think that what that shows you, and we talked about before, is again, self-awareness. You know yourself well. That's good. And I think even this list of words, when we looked at your opportunities for growth, and development, what we heard was, yes, could you please communicate with more compassion and understanding? Could you be more patient? And not jump to conclusion and sit with me and listen, right? So again, nothing. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we hear those things from other people and we're like, man, that kind of hurts. But then we're like, wait a minute, we say that about ourselves. We understand it. It's true, right? Yeah. But how do we manage it? It's kind of what we talked about.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we talked about your challenges. And I mean, this is obviously one that we will address, but not publicly. And then when we talk about, let's see, move down here. These motivators, I mean, this shows up across the board. I mean, some of your strengths that I saw on your 360 under your work style, is that you are tenacious, and that you have a strong work ethic, and high capacity, those types of things. And I think, when we get down to, so your goals, right? You kind of want to be able to prioritize your goals, help with your workflow, but you also probably expanded that view a little bit last time we talked, because you also saw some other things that you might want to work on. And so we'll have to kind of think about how you're going to prioritize those, right? Mm-hmm. And then hopefully we'll scream a lot.
Great.
So just reminding you, this is kind of what you said before, and you can tell me if anything's changed, but we talked about creating these goals and objectives that are actually measurable, that we can see and feel improvement on, figuring out how to deal with your workload and the limitations that exist, in the organization. How do you work within them? And, and then how do you improve your interaction with your team in your department? So those still feel like they resonate?
They do.
Okay. Let me stop sharing. Get back to seeing you. Okay. Okay. So, as you sit and think about, and again, we talked about, let's even say end of the year, because that's kind of around the time our coaching engagement would close.
Okay.
All that you've heard, about your strengths, your leadership style and presence, how you develop your team and your problem solving, but also the areas of opportunity. What would you really like to say when we get to the end of our engagement is notably different, improved, or yeah.
I think I feel like there's more either process or system in place that allows me to know what I'm owning. So that allows me the maybe ability to delegate or outsource, or like not feel like I'm taking it all and putting out fires. Like if some of it doesn't even have to be mine, then I can kind of be more focused. So I don't know how to even say that. Like maybe more of like even I guess like how I've kind of thought about doing it is, do I need to even divide up my month into like first, second, third, fourth week of the month? That's like, this is the way I communicate first, second, third, fourth week of the month with my staff. This is my, just to have a little bit more, because I probably would feel better because that's how I usually function. Is I love routine and order and structure in everything that I do, but my current job feels like, which I think you'd have to do some as a manager, like not wake up with your agenda of what you want to do and be like, sorry, you can't do that. This is what I'm doing today. Like that doesn't really work. But at the same time, there's got to be some structure to feel like to communicate well, to they can know what to expect from you, and it not just be like, okay, well, what am I doing today? Kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So does that pertain to your individual work or to leadership or both?
You mean my individual work in my job as a leader?
Well,
or what?
So a lot of times I say, as leaders, we're players and we're coaches. Like there's work that and maybe you don't have that division of labor. Maybe you're not being an individual contributor on your team to nutrition. Like you don't have this body of work. And then there's leadership. That's like the people that are reporting to you that you have to deal with. So tell me.
Right. So I don't do patient care. Is that what you're like? I don't have patient care. Like my people are my job.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. Now I say that, but I also feel like because my people are my work, if I need to step in, or if I have, like I can, I feel like I don't have as much margin as I would like to be able to do that. But again, that's because there's other things that I'm like, well, you as staff can't do some of these managerial leadership things, but you can see these patients. And while that would take some burden off, then there's going to be nobody to do these things. So
yeah,
if you could go see that patient, I could try to go hire somebody.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what I hear you saying is, and I mean, you talked about structure, and I think that a lot of times structure involves prioritization and organization. Do those go in with that from what you like? What do I need to prioritize? What needs to get done? Who can do it? Like thinking through those things. So kind of looking at the body of work and figuring out what's the highest priority, what's best suited, how often things have to happen, those types of things. So kind of some.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and we did, I think I might have shared with you, we sat down the 4 leaders that now is 3 in an open position, and had a division of responsibility conversation of like, what is the director's to own, what is mine to own, and what are the leads' responsibilities to own. And that took probably too long to do, but then it might be helpful for me to even go back and look at what is mine to own, and can that be organized in a way that's like in a monthly calendar. Like I do this often, like second and fourth Monday, I'm looking at this, and more of that versus all of it all the time, kind of, which is so weird because I do feel like I am so organized and structured, but that has I've just taken all that responsibility on, and no one's ever outlined their expectations of me. So that's hard. And I see things coming up that other people aren't owning. And so because I care for my people, I want it to be owned. And so I just end up not necessarily taking it, but it just kind of like is there, not being dealt with. And so I guess it is called taking it.
Did you all share that division of labor with the team?
That was the plan, but never happened.
Yeah. So we'll get into all this in coaching in our next session even.
Okay.
So, but I think, I think that's what I hear. So I hear you saying we need you in particular. I mean, the organization and the team department, or the organization, the department has needs there too, but we don't get to control all of that, right?
So I can do for one of my goals, I can have more structure and organization, and then I can be transparent with my people about that. I can make sure my boss is in agreement or can change that how she feels needed. That would feel better for everybody.
Yeah, I think that so that sounds good. It sounds like let's take Michelle's body of work and assess it's the prioritization of that body of work. Let's be sure to communicate out to the team what responsibilities fall on which of the 4 leads, or however you said leads, right? That's what you call it. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 leadership people. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now it's really 3. We have a missing one,
Oh,
which
Lindsay.
that is kind of, yeah. And so I've assumed that whole role again, because part of the way I delegated that was fought for that position. Like and so now she's gone. So that's.
Are you rehiring that position?
That's the hope, but it's going to be, there's not anybody currently that is probably interested or cut out for that role. And so even if we hired somebody that would maybe be interested in that, they'd probably need to be with our organization for like at least 6 months before they could step into something like that, unless they, came from a big pediatric hospital somewhere.
Okay.
Like then they maybe could, but like you have to really learn the system and how we function. You have to understand pediatrics before you could be in a leadership position. So
okay.
It'd be very rare.
You what?
It'd be very rare to find someone that could just step into that.
Okay. So general organization and prioritization of your work. That can include good communication, delegation, and then, like you said, just actual calendaring of that routine and rhythms, and that probably needs to account for the work that you've assumed from Lindsay being gone. You need to kind of take that into consideration too. And so we'll be able to talk through that. And I think so. If we talked about, before we moved on to another, objective, if we were to talk about that being, in December, that you could say, I have a good handle on my body of my body of work, how to prioritize and organize it, how to communicate about it, and feel more balanced and in control. Was that kind of okay? And so when we think about that, that's our objective, our goal. And on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you now with those things?
2.
Okay. And
right, easy way to accomplish something. Start really low.
That's right, lots of room.
Get to
so I'm a 2, you say. So can't get too much lower. It feels pretty.
Yeah, because when I wrote my body of work, to be able to communicate it, figure out what can be delegated, structure and organize it, and then have it balanced and feel in control of it. And when I think about all those, I'm like, we don't have a systematic approach to communicating. Like we have some little things in place, right? But those even have room for improvement. What is delegated so that for me to have like some kind of, I think the structure and organization will allow me to figure out also what can be delegated, and also that communication will then allow staff to not feel like, oh, I wish Michelle would delegate more. It's like, I'm happy to delegate more, but if we put what your responsibilities are with my responsibilities and y'all are already drowning and you want my help, like, how am I going to delegate some of my things? You know, like, I think just that transparency will be helpful. Like, they'll be like, oh, I see now why either she's not delegating or she can't step into this, or, and then just the balance and control is more of like how I feel about it. Like, I just want to feel like balanced and controlled with what's happening.
Those are good words. Okay. Yeah. So I just jotted down like prioritization kind of probably has to happen first. Then delegating the things that you don't have to be on your plate, communication, organizing it then into system. And the goal, what I heard you say was, I want to work more efficiently. I want what I'm doing to be more effective, but really what I really want to feel is a sense of balance and control. And so what do you think is feasible? We're gonna work together for another, what is it? Maybe 8 sessions, something 7 or 8 sessions. So what do you think it's, what did you say?
That sounds right.
Where do you think that number could move in that amount of time, or what would feel like success come in the close of our time, being at a number, what, on a scale of 1 to 10?
I guess even like between a 6 or a 7.
Okay. Good. Good. Well, you'll hear me ask that question a lot, not on the general scale, but like we'll ask session to session. I'll get to ask you that. Just because I want to make sure that when we're starting a session, like, and we close a session, you're actually feeling movement even then. Like, so it's a good measurement tool, if you will. Yeah. Okay. So processes and systems, I got that outlined. Number 2 would be what? Based on the feedback you heard and kind of your objectives.
And we're going to choose 2 total, or 2 or 3.
I think if we focus on 2, for your current, do you see balloons?
What happened? Yes, I did.
I don't know. This is happening a couple times on my calls, and I know there's a new interactive like feature with these. Like, I think you can make like a heart and it'll do hearts.
Oh my! What'd you do for balloons?
Thumbs up. Yeah, I don't know what else you can do.
To see if you can do balloons.
You can clap. I don't know. I thought, you know, it has a clapping hand. I think I did this. Didn't I?
I love that.
I don't know what I did though. I mean, I don't know how to make the balloons.
That's great.
Anyway, and I think you have to have like an upgraded version of, I don't even know what it is. Maybe it's I don't know. Anyway, it's just happening.
I want it.
So we're celebrating you. There we go.
Great. Okay, so my second goal, I kind of like, well, I answered my question as I was saying, do we need 2 or 3? But really, it depends on what I choose for 2. If it needs to have a third one. Like, if 2 encompasses the rest of the things, then we don't need 3. But if it doesn't, I might need 3.
Well, I think, I guess that's true. I think what I would think about is when you reflect back on your feedback, right? Because you want your feedback to be driving some of these. I mean, you want to pick from that too. But if we look back at your 360, and specifically, I mean, we're going to leverage your strengths as we coach. But if we look at the growth areas, I think that what you just identified would really tackle at least 1 and 2.
Okay.
Do you agree or no?
With the growth areas?
I
feel like it's 1 and 3.
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. That's exactly what I meant. I just
so the test. 1 and 3. And so basically number 2 needs to be the second one, because that's what I was thinking too. Like, I need to have like personal growth and all that. Right.
Yeah, I mean, what you're calling personal growth, I'm thinking is back to that word that's listed there, emotional intelligence. Really, yeah. And I think if we look down here, even at this third one, right? That was we're basically coming up with this third one is your second objective, right? To continue growing emotional intelligence, moving from head to heart knowledge, being able to feel, express, and manage emotions, not just know what it is in you and the others. I should probably put that on there. In you and others. Because remember, it's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, social management, meaning others, people's emotions on your team and knowing how to care for and navigate those. So yeah, I think that is a good second objective based on what feedback you've heard. But that has to be meaningful to you. So tell me what do you want to work on in that? Like what and what excites you about that? Not this, but what excites you in that area?
I guess what could excite me is, even like when I was doing that more Enneagram work, was to do that and then also like have the department come alongside and do some of that as well. That excites me. I feel like some of it I enjoy doing. It just doesn't always feel measurable and productive, and so it's hard for me to carve out time, and maybe that's part of my balance, control, structure. It's like for 2 hours on Tuesdays or whatever, 2 hours in my whole week. On Mondays, I sit down and find those 2 hours that I'm going to XYZ. Then I feel like I'll feel maybe more productive in that, like having some carved out time that's like, because right now, again, because everything just kind of happens, and I feel like I am a high performer, so I can get a lot accomplished, but I would have more of a regularity of like how often I'm sending out those emails of like, hey, want to just congratulate you on this, or thank you for doing this, or, like maybe I need that time where I'm like, I just need to reflect on all my staff and I send that all out, versus like, I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if, but I feel like I also need to know more like, how am I going to do this? What is my plan for doing this?
Do you remember us talking about it last time a little bit, as the differentiation between, like it being something that you do?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
And like exude, something that I exude instead of do. Yeah.
So when
but I've got to learn how to do, like, I can't just exude it without doing something to like learn how to exude it.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're right. I think but I think when you use a word like it doesn't feel measurable and productive,
that,
what I hear is that same mentality you shared last time, which is meaning to spend time on this, meaning the work that would, like, you're thinking of tasks that are more emotional tasks, or like send an email that's more fluffy, right?
Yeah.
What'd you call it? Glitter and sprinkles or sparkles last time or something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I enjoy doing that. Like, I need permission to do some of that. Like, I need to give myself permission probably, because I'm overcompensating for what's happening in the department. So I need that built in, but that's not helping the point that you said, like, it doesn't need to be something that's so dewy. Like, how do I need to do this other part? What does my goal need to be?
Well, I'm not going to tell you your goal. That's not how this works. Oh. No, but let me ask some questions to see if we can get at it. So,
refer to rule 1. I'm not giving you the answer. Okay.
You do listen. Look at that. So yeah, if we look at emotional intelligence as how do you grow your like book intelligence or your smarts? How do you grow that skill intelligence?
Learn it and practice it.
Yeah. And so practicing a an emotional intelligence skill though is usually meaning like I'm going to practice an expression, I'm going to change the way I say something. Yeah. Like it shouldn't be it's going to feel additive to your efforts because you're having to think about it. But as have you ever heard somebody say like, I've never seen a purple car before, and then I saw one the other day and now all I see is purple cars all the time, right?
Yeah.
As you expand your emotional intelligence, like vocabulary and understanding, and you start to identify your own emotions and understand like what triggers them and how I express them and how that might be received by someone else. As you start to kind of expand your understanding of it, you start to be able to also notice it around others, and you role play with me and others, conversations that might need more sensitivity or awareness of somebody else's needs. And I think that's where you go back to the notes that kind of you receive back from raters that said they want you to have more understanding and be, of their capacity, because you have a large capacity. Remember we talked about this last time. And so not to be having the same, so some of it's thinking, but some of it's also just how is this going to come across? How does this person typically receive this type of information? And so it takes some inner thought process changes, but it doesn't mean I'm going to like bring flowers and donuts every day.
Yeah. So would it be like, okay, so I am going to take one of these, I need to have like a list of them or whatever, but like take the, or maybe it's the list that they provided me, but to appreciate, like my goal this week is in everything that I do, I'm going to appreciate people's different capacity and like really just focus on that until it can kind of become something that you're like, you do it for 30 days, it becomes more succinct. So it's like if I'm trying to be just too broad and saying like, oh, let me be more emotional intelligent this week, like that's not going to be helpful in the nitty gritty of what I do. But if I have something like I'm going to really focus on people's capacity and how it could be different this week and everything. So everything I'm already doing, it's not changing what I'm doing, but I'm just like kind of filtering it through that lens.
Yeah.
And then like pick up a new.
Yeah. I think that coaching is going to help you with this, because I think what'll happen is there's assessments we can take for emotional intelligence that'll give you some information for dialogue. You and I can dialogue on. It'll expose you to some vocabulary. I'll be able to, each time we coach, I'll be able to give you some homework to do. And so those things should help move that needle so that, a client that I'm working with here in the organization, we started doing this work, and she came back into my office, a month or two later and was like, guess what I did? Like, I recognized that it wasn't good to engage in this in the conversation. I did, and so all of a sudden you start to kind of have these wins of where you're understanding how the shift impacts. And so I think, you don't necessarily have to worry about how to get there, but we will need to define some things. And so some of what will be really helpful is discussing scenarios that you've gone through where your emotions have been at play, or you have heard someone else had an emotional reaction, or you could tell, but you didn't have time to deal with it, right? And why? And so talking about those scenarios will be helpful, and a lot. I'll hopefully ask questions to bring those to mind when we coach. But I think that's a great second goal. And I would say in terms of, and I also want to remind you too, because the words come up today, the word balance. When we went through your description words that people gave for you, you and I spent a lot of time talking through some of those words that made you like really relieved that they made the list. Because I think you even said like, no one would ever have a hard time believing I'm this, this, and this if they know me. But I'm really glad that these showed up, right? And they take more effort on my part. And so I think it's those words that will probably are the ones that are attached to emotional intelligence. And you indicated to me they are really important to you. That you want your team to feel seen and understood in that way, and yet they're not necessarily the strongest muscle or the strongest tool in your toolbox. And so I think that's what this gets you. And so I think in that, keeping that in mind, where do you think, probably unknowingly, you don't know where you are, because you may not have an awareness of where you are on the scale, but on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you feel that you might land today? And maybe even
on my emotion scale.
Yeah, what you understand about it, or how confident you feel in it, or how well you're doing it.
I think I feel like I'm doing better than probably I am. And once I understand it more, I'll be able to recognize places that I'm not as good.
Okay.
Like, I feel like I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know, 6 or 7. But I feel like as I talk about it more, I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Like, the more, like when the more sin you see, the further away from Christ you feel, right? So it's like, the more I learn about emotional intelligence, I feel like I'm going to be like, oh, that is, so that it kind of pushes you further back, but it's almost like where I need to go to be able to grow.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I think I'm doing it okay. Like, it's fine. It's working. Or like, I'll send them down to whoever wants to have that kumbaya party, so it's like, it's kind of working for me / but I think like broadening even that view, right? Like, so it's like, okay, more than that, like, I need to back it up. So this is probably not going to be good. Well, I don't want to say I'm starting at a 6 or 7. My goal is to be a 3. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Well, when you say that, you're like you said, I think I'm doing better than I really am. And you talked about awareness is going to bring clarity to that number, which is fair. But also when you say that, it probably indicates that I'm reading off of the feedback that I'm probably not a 6 or 7. Where would you feel like that, based on the feedback, where do you think you are? That's kind of a reality litmus test, right? So what do you think other people are putting you at?
I want to know your number, but that won't happen. Maybe 4.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's helpful. And if you were to move that needle by the time we finished our coaching engagement, you would want to be where?
I think a 7, 6 or 7. I think, okay, so I think a 6 or 7. Back to the other one, like, the other one I'm starting at a 2, but I feel like my capability and capacity to get there will go really fast, like stronger strengths anyways. So it's like, if that needs to happen, we can get to a 6 or 7 starting from a 2. I feel like the other one, being at a 4, to actually get to that 6 or 7 is going to be a lot harder. So to move the needle a little bit is going to be harder than the other one to move that needle like from a 2 to a 7.
Totally makes sense. Totally. Yep. Okay. Great. Again, I feel like you're so aware about these things. It's so you're very aware. So that's good. You're so funny. Okay. So those are 2 great objectives for your work. Do you want to outline a different objective for, like, that answers the question, do I need to stay or leave, and or make a decision and make steps towards that?
So new information. I just found out this week that the director of nutrition at St. Jude put in her retirement date, and she'll be retiring the end of this year.
Wow.
So that being said, like, I'm already, like, I'll be having dinner with her sometime this month, because her and I and the director at Regional 1 all started a manager and director in nutrition group in the greater Memphis area. So the 3 of us are starting that.
So cool.
So, but then the other part of me is like, I don't even know if I want our job anymore. Like I started all this thinking like that was my end goal. Like, oh, I love that organization. I feel like what I'm not happy about at Methodist is all the big upper St. Jude is doing a lot of those things well. I mean, it's still a big organization, has plenty of room for error. But then I'm also like, but I also really want to explore the flexibility of being remote. And I don't know if that's a part of that. So that would be a big question that I would have. So all that to say, I think it could be something, because I do think it's something I'm going to be working on. And maybe I need a little bit more like coaching and guidance in my next steps, so that I don't have this kind of dreamy thing, not process structured. I don't know.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can talk through some of that in terms of, helping you to identify what it is your needs and wants are for your job, and or for your, the work that you're going to do, your career, your job. And then we can talk through, I think some of that will illuminate where you're best suited to pursue, and also some steps to pursue with curiosity, like you did before.
Yeah.
Just because it can't hurt.
Right.
And sometimes pursuing that gives you clarity. So yeah, we can talk through some of that.
Or opens other doors, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay, Michelle, this is so productive. So I think we have, how do you feel about those 3
Excellent
objectives? Okay.
I feel like a 9.5.
9.5. I love it. Great. So obviously, we haven't outlined everything. I'll put this together in a better outline for you so that it kind of details some of the activities and exercises that we have said would be helpful in big scheme, but every week when we're coaching too, those homework things will be added to one of these lanes, so that there are activities that you're taking to take steps towards that too. So it's not like we put it together now and you just do it all, because that's not how it works, because we're going to discover together. And what we think we may know now, just like you said with the emotional intelligence, we may not know tomorrow. So yeah. Okay, we're at the end of this time. Is there anything else you want to ask about the creation of this development plan? Because next time we meet, we're going to coach on it.
Wonderful. This is fabulous. I'm good.
Okay. Well, we'll sign off. Hold on. Let me stop recording 1 second here.